Okay, it is 12:01. We're going to go ahead and get started. Um, as you just heard, we are recording this webinar, so we're all on the record. But I want to take just a minute to welcome those of you who have joined us already here today. I'm Josh. I'm the founder and executive director of Recover Appalachia. I really appreciate you carving out a little bit of your time this afternoon to be with us. This is installment number 2 of Recover Appalachia's professional learning series. Just a kind of a low pressure way for our partners to tune in once a month and learn a little bit about our work and how it may be relevant to the individuals and the clients that you serve in recovery or reentry. I encourage you again, if you don't mind, if you want to, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, what organization you represent in the chat. If you have comments throughout this presentation and conversation, feel free to drop those in there as well. I love the feedback. I love the engagement. So feel free to do that as much as you would like to. The format for this webinar is very simple. We will be here for about an hour, hour and a half at the most, just depending on how long the conversation goes. I'm going to start with the presentation, the boring part, and then we're going to move into the conversation that we have with our guest here today. And then at the end, we will have a little space for Q&A. So if you have anything that piques your interest along the way, anything that I say that brings up a question for you that you're not hearing an answer to, or that you just like to hear more about, feel free to drop that in the chat. We will monitor that throughout, and I'll make sure to answer any questions that you have at the end. Okay. So this is part of an ongoing conversation. So I want to take a minute just to recap our January session in case you weren't with us for that one. In January, we started the conversation about how entrepreneurial mindset training can improve outcomes for individuals in recovery and reentry. All right, so we're building off of that original frame, which was very much focused on structure. If you work in workforce development, if you work in the SUD treatment space, if you work as a reentry specialist in any other capacity, you're often dealing with folks who are coming out of a very highly structured environment that in many cases has had life-saving benefits for them. Whether we're talking about treatment or whether we're talking about incarceration, even in some cases, a very highly structured environment that has provided stability for individuals, if nothing else. It's given them some positive accountability, hopefully, a space to get their feet under them, begin to think more clearly about the choices that they've made in their lives and the outcomes they've experienced and how they might like to redesign that for their future. And that's highly beneficial to people in recovery and reentry. But what happens when a person who has benefited from a highly structured environment steps out of that structure back into real life? That's what we talked about in our conversation in January. That's the point at which there's a very necessary skill set that individuals need in order to succeed, because real life is not like the highly structured environments of treatment or incarceration, where people are holding you accountable, looking over your shoulder, reminding you of what you need to do, keeping you accountable to a highly structured schedule. Real life is full of complexity, it's full of ambiguity, it's full of uncertainty, and ultimately it's up to each individual to decide how they're going to spend their time, what they're going to do or not do, whether they're going to reach out for the help that is available to them. So this is a point at which we see high rates of relapse, high rates of recidivism. So we're asking a question at Recover Appalachia is, how do we equip people with skills necessary to make that transition more successfully over the long term? That was the way we framed our conversation beginning in January. Today, I want to focus a little bit different angle on this question and step back and ask what we actually mean when we talk about entrepreneurship. And so to begin with this, I want to ask if you can complete a poll for me. I want you to think about this question right here. Clement, go ahead and publish that poll if you don't mind. When you hear the term entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship training, what immediately comes to your mind? I'm going to give you a minute, hopefully, to answer that poll if you see it on your screen. When you hear entrepreneurship training, do you think about starting a business? Do you think maybe in terms of financial literacy, job readiness, personal development, what comes to your mind when you hear entrepreneurship training? And if none of those options really resonate with you and something else comes to mind, feel free to drop that in the chat as well. I'm interested to know what you think about this. So I've been working in the field of entrepreneurship education for many years now. And over the course of that time, two things have become very certain to me. First is that entrepreneurship is a very tricky word to spell. It's taken me a long time to get it right. But number two is that almost everyone, as soon as they hear the word entrepreneurship, they immediately associate it with business creation, business management. So they think in terms of starting a business, launching a startup, being your own boss, and so forth. And that's certainly involved in entrepreneurship, right? But this is a very limiting definition that often excludes many individuals from the conversation when we talk about the potential value of entrepreneurial training for folks that may not want to start a business. So I want you to consider how this definition could be limiting. And I want you to consider the value of entrepreneurship training for people who may not necessarily want to start a business. And as we get into that, I do want to be clear. Recover Appalachia, we do absolutely want to serve people who want to start their own businesses. I first imagined this work when I volunteered at the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility in Lucasville, Ohio, way back in, I think, 2017. I met a young man there who was in prison on his second stint on a drug-related charge, and he told me his story about the first time around. He had served his time, got out, released back into the community. He got a job at a local manufacturing facility where he was on a 90-day probationary period. But he also had a girlfriend who became pregnant at the time, and they only had one car between them. So they had to make decisions a couple times on whether they would prioritize getting her to her prenatal doctor's appointments or him showing up to work on time. They chose to prioritize her health. One thing led to another, and he was not renewed at the end of his probationary period. They let him go. He kind of despaired. He kind of panicked. He felt like he didn't have any other opportunities. Nobody was giving him a shot at work. He either wasn't connected to or wasn't aware of the supports that were available to him in his community. So he said he went back to doing the thing that he knew to do well, which was selling drugs on the street. And then he ended up getting busted again and landed back in prison talking to me on a second time. And that's the first point that I started to ask myself. What if there was a service, an organization targeting individuals like this who serve their time and then come back into their community and face barriers to conventional employment pathways that oftentimes trip them up, lead to relapse, lead to recidivism? What if there was a service targeting these individuals, helping them develop skills, helping them make connections so that they can start their own businesses, so that they can create their own job, so to speak, their own meaningful work experience, whether that's a small business, whether it's a side hustle to supplement the income of their full-time gig, whether it's a micro enterprise, whatever it might be, something to support themselves and their families and contribute to the community in which they live. So I want to be clear that that is a target that we have, but it's not the only purpose of this work. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is this limiting definition of entrepreneurship that restricts it only to business startup and doesn't see the wider, broader, more accessible value of entrepreneurial training for individuals who may not want to start their own business, including individuals in recovery or reentry. So when we define entrepreneurship more broadly, it becomes something that's far more accessible, I think, and far more human. And that definition is what guides our work. So I see the results of the poll just popped up for me here. I appreciate you taking some time on that. Starting a business, financial literacy, job readiness, personal development, all these things are represented here. All right. So I want you to consider this definition of entrepreneurship, because this is the approach that we take at Recover Appalachia. Entrepreneurship is the self-directed pursuit of opportunities to create value in the world by solving problems for other people. Our approach seeks to redefine entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship training, specifically as it relates to a person's mindset, their way of thinking and acting in the world, that makes this more widely accessible so that more people can enjoy the benefits of entrepreneurship training, especially those at the margins, such as those in recovery and reentry. So think about how a definition like this might apply given the people that you serve in your work. Keeping in mind that value is not strictly understood in monetary or financial terms only. It can be economic, but it can also be social. It can also be organizational. Think of the potential benefits of entrepreneurial mindset training for students, for employees, for case managers, for managers within a company or a business or an organization. The pace of change that we're experiencing in the world today is accelerating at what seems like an ever increasing rate. Right? Many of the assumptions that people once relied upon, such as the assumption that I'm going to have a stable career, that I'm going to work at one place my entire life, and then I'm going to retire with a pension. Predictable industries, long-term employment, these things are no longer guaranteed as they were maybe a generation ago, 10 to 20 years ago even. We see this all the time. Individuals can't count on the financial value of a college degree, for instance, in the same way that they could a generation ago. The long-term security of a pension, or heck, even if their industry will still be around 10 years from now. And so I'm thinking of specific examples here. I'm old enough to remember it's not been that long ago where people were saying, teach your kids how to code. This is the future. But now with the proliferation of AI tools that are highly efficient when it comes to even coding, the prospects of a secure financial future, learning how to code as a young person, are starting to go out the window already. So whole industries are being disrupted at a much faster rate than they ever have in the past. According to the World Economic Forum, nearly 39% of core job skills are expected to change by 2030. That's 4 years away now. And skill gaps are now considered to be the biggest barrier to business transformation globally. All right, so this means that success in today's workforce increasingly depends on things like adaptability, problem solving, lifelong learning, right? The same capabilities that we describe as the entrepreneurial mindset. All right, so what I want you to realize and really reflect on here is that entrepreneurial thinking is not only about starting a business. It's about navigating uncertainty. It's about being able to think quickly on your feet and respond amidst changing and complex environments. So consider the advantages of having students or employees or managers who demonstrate these types of skills. And I just gave you a few examples here on the screen that you see. Many employers in our society right now are even rethinking how they hire. So you'll see things like Walmart, General Motors, Apple, Target, these types of large corporations have started to remove degree requirements from many roles that they offer. And they're focusing instead on skills and demonstrated capability. And sometimes that demonstrated capability is just a demonstrated capability to learn. You may not have the skill set they're looking for right now, but they see that you're a lifelong learner. They see that you have that proactive ability to develop yourself and to acquire the skills that you need to fit the job that it is they're looking for. So this kind of shift we're seeing in the broader workplace reflects kind of a recognition, I think, that adaptability, problem solving, real world experience, these types of skills often matter more than credentials alone, especially in a rapidly changing economy. So these types of skills are needed to succeed both within organizations and in the transitions between them, whether a person experiences that through their own personal choice, leaving one job, looking for another, or forced displacement, which we're seeing more and more of these days. According to a 2017 paper published by the McKinsey Global Institute, by 2030, again, 4 years from now, we're looking at between 75 and 375 million workers worldwide will need to change occupational categories. At the same time, all workers will need to engage in lifelong learning as their jobs continuously evolve and change alongside increasingly capable machines, right? So this matters. This matters because things like AI, artificial intelligence, automation are reshaping the nature of work in lots of fields. And in some places and in some industries, we're just beginning to see these waves kind of wash up on the shore. There's more change coming. Research suggests that nearly 40% of global jobs are exposed now to AI-driven change, meaning that tasks are being redesigned rather than simply eliminated. So the kind of capacity we're trying to build in individuals through mindset training is the types of abilities that human beings will need increasingly to survive, not just as business owners, but as employees and as managers in established companies. So this is what we envision here. There's two pathways essentially that arise from the same foundation, right? And this kind of makes up the core philosophy, the vision, if you will, the methodology behind our approach here at Recover Appalachia. So one of those pathways is most obvious, and that's the story I started out with the young man from SOCF. We want to empower our returning citizens to overcome barriers that they face to conventional employment, specifically through self-directed work. If nobody's going to give them a job because they're a felon or because they face stigmas related to their past history of addiction or mental health, whatever it might be, then we want to equip these people with the skills and the connections that they need to create their own work, right? And show them the process for doing that successful entrepreneurs go through all the time, and to see that it's something that's within their reach as well. And that doesn't have to look grand. It can be a very small scale, micro enterprise, self-employment, side hustle, etc. The second pathway is the less obvious one, and that's the one we're focused on here, of helping our partners and others to understand the value of entrepreneurial training beyond simply business training. We want to help individuals who may not want to start a business because we know that's not everybody. In our pilot program that we ran in November, we served about 40 participants, all in various stages of recovery and clinical treatment. And I'd say about 10 to 15% of those individuals actually had an aspiration to start their own business, or they had a business in the past and now they were interested in relaunching it. So it's not for everybody, and we shouldn't expect it to be. But how can we bring the value of entrepreneurial skill training to individuals who may not want to start their own business? And this is going to help them. It's going to help them become better employees. It's going to help them become better managers and workers. And beyond that, even, it's going to help them become better people. And when I say that, I don't mean morally better people. I mean more able to successfully navigate life, right? That's what an entrepreneurial mindset will help individuals do. This came out in our conversation in January. At our webinar, I had Taylor Golden. Taylor is the founder of Empower Treatment. He's one of the partners that we worked with in our pilot program delivery in November. He sat in on a few of the sessions that we did with his clients, and he said one of his most surprising takeaways was how much overlap there was between the skills that are necessary to succeed as an entrepreneur or a business owner and the skills that they teach that are required for a person to be successful in recovery long-term. He was just kind of mind blown at the overlap between these two areas and the similarities between the two different types of journeys. So the point here is that recovery and reentry both involve things like rebuilding a person's identity, rebuilding trust in relationships, regaining stability and maintaining that stability and an ability to respond to changing circumstances amidst uncertainty, all different types of skill sets that are not just clinical or workforce challenges. These are human challenges that require a deep sense of agency, right? So the entrepreneurial capacities that we train people in, things like future orientation, how to create a vision for their life and how to execute on goals moving towards it, persistence, how to bounce back when the inevitable setbacks occur, when they get told no, when they're rejected for a job, when all of the triggers happen that could lead a person back into relapse or back into some type of automated behavior that leads to recidivism. How can a person begin to navigate a mindset and a way of thinking that enables them to build resilience through those difficulties and challenges of life so that they don't relapse, so that they don't re-enter the system? So all of these types of skills strengthen recovery capital is essentially the bottom line here. It helps individuals to take ownership of their decisions and their direction in life. So I want to say that one more time because it's kind of at the heart of what I want to present to you here is that entrepreneurial capacities strengthen recovery capital, and they improve ultimately long-term outcomes for the individuals that we're all interested here in serving. One more research reference I want to throw at you. I'm happy to send these out, in a follow-up email if you're interested in any further reading on any of these sources that I'm sharing with you. But a 2015 paper published by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development OECD for short, recognize the benefits of entrepreneurial education as not only drivers for new job creation and economic growth, but also as key in increasing societal resilience, individual growth of human beings, increased academic engagement among students, and improved equality in society. So I say all of this because I want you to consider the potential value of mindset education for your clients, even if they're not interested in starting a business. That's our target. That's what we do. That's probably what you do at different levels within your organization as well. But there are benefits for individuals who have no interest in going down that path, things that can help them be better employees, be better workers, more successful just in life in general. All right. So I want to encourage you to try to let go of the traditional notion that many of us hold of entrepreneurship as only relating to business creation, to see how that kind of narrows the field too much, that it excludes people, especially those who are returning from incarceration or prison, from the potential benefits and values. And discard the belief that only certain people are born entrepreneurs. All right. The core curriculum that we use, that we kind of modify for recovery and reentry context, is based on a simple belief, and that's that entrepreneurs are not born, they are made. Right? That's a very common myth that people often hold, is that you have to have a certain disposition, a certain personality traits that determine whether or not you can be a successful entrepreneur. This is something that we reject. While we recognize that some people have certain traits, like some people have a higher risk tolerance, for instance, that may dispose them more towards success on the path of entrepreneurship, that's not necessarily the case for everyone. In fact, when you start to talk to everyday entrepreneurs, you'll find that most of them are no more risk tolerant than any of the rest of us. I myself am not. I've got 3 kids that depend on me for food and shelter. I do not get excited about taking huge risks and waking up every morning and betting the whole farm on just some untested idea. And most entrepreneurs are the same way. So it's a myth to think that you have to be born with certain dispositions, such as a high tolerance for risk, to be skilled as an entrepreneur. The mindset that we're talking about is a set of transferable cognitive and non-cognitive skills that can be taught and can be learned, and that are valuable in a wide variety of contexts. So question, what does this mean for you? All right, for starters, and this is why we do these webinar series events, is to just kind of get the wheels turning, because I think it raises many exciting possibilities for how organizations within recovery and treatment and reentry spaces might integrate mindset training, entrepreneurial mindset training, into their existing programs, into their existing treatment services. Without disrupting everything, without turning it on its head, how can we just plug in here this element of training, which is going to strengthen recovery capital and improve the outcomes that we're already seeking through a variety of different means, right? So to think about that, to talk through that, and to provide options for that is essentially what Recover Appalachia is here to help with. So when you think about this type of work, and you think about the organization here that I represent, Recover Appalachia, it helps, I think, to think in terms of what we are and are not. When we think of integrating mindset training within existing services, Recover Appalachia is not a treatment provider. It's not what we do. We're not a workforce agency. That's not solely what we do, even though we touch on those pieces. We're not a business incubator, even though there are elements of business training associated with what we do. So we can be thought of more of as a training partner, third party, as a force multiplier to expand and improve and enhance the work that you're already doing, as a capacity builder, offering training for staff members and case managers and those alike to how they can integrate this type of training into their current and existing programs. A pathway feeder as well. We saw this in our pilot delivery with Future Plans Ohio. Many of the individuals that we helped during that program, we also enrolled in their career assessment and training services, so that those who were interested in taking next steps could take those next steps along with our partners. And ultimately, a narrative change agent. What we're looking to do is to kind of change the narrative on what our returning citizens are capable of in terms of socioeconomic development. That we see in our returning citizens more potential for their contributions to our society and to our communities, rather than just come out of prison, come out of treatment, and do your best not to relapse, do your best not to be bad. We want to help people reclaim a sense of agency, help them take an ownership of their own futures, socially, economically, relationally, whatever that looks like for them, and feel empowered to create value in their communities, in their world, by solving problems for other people. And if they choose to do that on a path of conventional business entrepreneurship, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's all entrepreneurs do. They create value for other people, oftentimes the kind of value that people are willing to pay money for, if we're talking about a product or service. And that's good for them. That's good for the community. That's good for the world. And it's good for the entrepreneur. It empowers the entrepreneur in the process. It gives them a living. It gives them a livelihood. It gives them something they can support their families with and feel good about. And in some cases, like the young man I mentioned from the story from the prison in the beginning of this presentation, it provides them a strengthened sense of recovery capital that reduces their chance of relapse and recidivism. Right. And those are the kind of outcomes that we're seeking for all of our clients. So the ways to engage with this work are many. And I'm just highlighting this here for you. We'll send out these slides after the webinar as well if you want to follow up and have any further conversation on it. But we are a learning organization. So we're here to learn and to help others learn. And there are multiple ways to engage with the work that we're doing. We've talked a little bit about the direct program delivery, the training provision that we do. There's this webinar series, right, where we're having these conversations with providers in the space, and we're considering ways that we can strengthen and improve outcomes for all of our clients. We have a podcast that we've just launched last week as well. All this information will be provided to you in the follow-up to the webinar today, where we're having conversations with individuals who have lived experience, with practitioners in the field, with economic development specialists, and we're exploring this notion of how individuals and communities both lose and reclaim a sense of agency, so that they can take ownership of their own economic futures and the benefits that that brings to them, to their families, and to their wider communities. We're looking to pilot a number of new programs this year and looking for partners to help us in that space. All sorts of interesting collaborations are available. So happy to have that conversation further with any of you. But what I want to do now is shift gears and move from, presentation, theory, up in the sky, and bring this down to earth. Because everything that we're doing is grounded in the experience and the perspective of those who have been there, essentially. That's a very important aspect of our work, is having it all driven by and informed by the lived experience of individuals who know what it's like to face these types of challenges, who have run into the barriers, maybe time and time again, gotten knocked down, got back up, got the help they needed, and then have found a way to be successful, have found a way to create a life that means something to them, that matters to them, and that helps them have an avenue of contributing to their communities. So that's why I'm happy to have with us here today, Jimmy Harding. Jimmy is a friend of mine. He works with Moving Forward. They're a SUD service provider, a recovery support organization down here in Southern Ohio, where we are based in Scioto County. Jimmy participated in a training that was kind of a precursor to the work that we do here at Recover Appalachia that I led a few years back. And I really enjoyed meeting Jimmy and kind of learning and seeing his journey since then. So he's with us today here to have a conversation. He's working in the treatment field, has been stable and maintained that employment for 5 years. I don't want to give away too much of his story, but this is just a simple introduction to Jimmy. I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share now and going to bring him onto the screen. Jimmy, are you with me? There you go. Maybe check your thing. I'm not hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are. Welcome, brother. All right. So, Jimmy, we did a training together. It's been, I think, in 2021. So 2026, that's 5 years ago. I'm feeling older every day. Out Moving Forward, where you now work, where you were a client at the time in treatment yourself. So let's start there if we can. And I'm interested. So thinking back to when you were in treatment at Moving Forward, and then you participated in this mindset training program that we did, what was your life? What did life look like for you at that time? or the time leading up to treatment when we first met?
For me, it was just a vicious cycle of in and out of institutions, prison, jail. Um, I've had been to treatment probably like a 16 times in a 3 year period after being released from prison. And I just got caught in that vicious cycle of I would use, go to treatment, use, go to treatment, and then there was nothing else after the fact. So like, um, it seemed pretty hopeless in a lot of different ways. Um, uh, Very minimal support outside of the treatment aspect. Very little to look forward to in life. So pretty hopeless.
I'm trying to think back, Jimmy. You were about 30 years old at the time. Is that correct?
I was 29,
29. Yeah. So leaning on.
maybe 35
Um,
this year.
yeah. Right.
29,
So
30.
what you're describing there is kind of like a back and forth and in and out, in treatment, out of treatment, in treatment, out of treatment, kind of a revolving door type experience that you
Yeah.
went through. Like, what are your thoughts about the future at that point in your life? How far ahead are you thinking for yourself, or is this all just a moment by moment thing for you?
Initially, it started out for me like moment to moment. Um, Not really having like a plan for the day, dealing with like the addiction aspects of everything, coming into the process. Um, didn't really have too much thought about a future, you know. There's like a daily reprieve, like living day to day, pretty much in mindset of being in like survival mode.
Is this the hustle? I've heard that term used.
Yeah, the hustle. How am I gonna get by with this for this to do this, and even using that same mindset in the aspect of being in treatment.
Hmm.
Even when everything's still provided for me,
Mm-hmm.
I still woke up with that same mindset. Whether it was how am I going to deal with this person today, or how am I going to go about doing this today, or this routine that I have to follow, or getting up and going to group when I just don't feel it anymore. So it was kind of stuck in that survival mode mechanism. A lot of emotionally driven. So I kind of dictated my day moment to moment based on how I felt, which drove a lot of like my behaviors, my responses to life, how I looked at life, how I looked at my future, and most of it was from a pretty negative aspect.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, talk to me a little bit about that. Your self identity at the time, how you see yourself, because the way I see, some of the work that we try to do is helping a person shift their own self identity, like how they see themselves and what they are capable of and what their future could look like. So when you're entering treatment at that time in your life, like what is your own view of yourself?
Uh, and putting it in like my terminology and stuff, I was just like a hopeless junkie, you know. A lot of different stigmas, a convicted felon, um, got the dope fiend, I was a deadbeat dad at that time. Didn't have much to do with any of my children. Um, it was just, and that's kind of like the overall broad view of like how I viewed myself. I was a menace to society. I became those stigmas, and I started to believe in those.
Mm-hmm.
I believed them.
Right, yeah. And the beliefs that we hold about ourselves is a very powerful thing, right? It will determine what chances we take, when we're given opportunities for something new, right?
Yeah.
So when we talk about a mindset, we're talking about what are the underlying beliefs, and we all have them, that we bring to the table in every opportunity, in every interaction. There are things that we believe about ourselves, about other people, about the world, about our potential, about whatever it is, and we don't often understand how those underlying beliefs are governing our choices, right? So for you, when you had that kind of a very low self identity at the time, I'm guessing one of my questions was, did you see yourself as someone who could succeed in work or business or just in life in general, helping other people? Eventually, you came to see yourself differently. What was that process like for you? How long did it take?
Um, but during the last the belief, the spirit of it, like the belief system of like possibility of that changing, it definitely happened during the mindset training that we did, because of how I viewed my skills, like the skills that I had, um, in that aspect. It was like, just a simple question. Someone asked me, "What are you good at?"
Mm.
And I'm like, I can hustle, and I can hustle. Um, I can sell you a pipe dream. I can sell ice to an Eskimo. Um, and I'm really good. I'm really good at networking on the aspect of like getting and maintaining drug use. Um, and that's how I really seen it, and then it was kind of like during the seminar that we had, I think it was when I had a couple of volunteers come in, and it was my people,
Mhm.
people that I knew from like the recovery aspect of things, and they came in and they told us, they gave me like a different perception of how to utilize the skills that I'm already good at, you know. Instead of it calling it hustling, I learned how to socialize.
Mm.
Instead of learning how to maintain like my drug use, the skills that I learned in that aspect of being like having that characteristic of like getting along with everybody, being someone that it can be outgoing, um, being someone that can be teachable. So that's when the light bulb kind of clicked of like the possibility of,
Mm.
well, the only thing that I'm good at is doing drugs and stuff like that. So like, why not take that experience that I have and not try to change me as an individual, but try to utilize what I already have and just fine tooth comb in like the perception of how I went about using it in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, yeah. So that was going to be a next question was there a moment, and you kind of already answered that, when kind of the light bulb went on. And it sounds like you're saying for you, it was this realization through some of the reflection and the conversations that I do have skill sets. Maybe I've
Mm-hmm.
been using them for certain things that have not been good for me or for other people, right? So, but if I can learn how to redirect the skills that I have, the strengths that I have on more like life affirming paths that are going to actually benefit me in the long term, that maybe I can learn how to do that. And that was a moment.
Yeah. And also there was just like I guess it was like almost like the transference from like hopeless to having some form of hope because I didn't have nothing else to latch onto. And it gave me just enough. It's still just enough, like it planted that little seed that we always try to talk with our clients about. Like I'm just here as a counselor, I'm just here to provide a seed. Plant a seed, and it's up to you to water it. How you
Mm-hmm.
go about watering that seed is going to be based off what you're willing to open to do. And I think for me, that was kind of like when the seed of hope was planted into me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
It's been some time since the group that we were in together, but I can remember myself a certain moment with your guys' group where we were talking about how this stuff translates to not just your all's individual lives, but how you show up in the community. And I remember
mhm.
this moment where somebody said something like, Portsmouth or Scioto County, this is our community just as much as it is, like, I think maybe the Glockners was that, like, because they're a big family business name, right? This community belongs to us just as much as anybody else, and it'll be shaped by our actions now and in the future. And that was, I remember that being a light bulb moment. At least I felt it was, seeing it in the eyes of some of the guys and then feeling it myself. Like, yeah, this is a very powerful thing. This realization that my life is my own, my community belongs to me, and I can change it. I can change it all through different choices, right?
Yeah, I remembered, man, it's like, yeah, when you started talking about it, it was like yesterday. Um, because I actually work in the same facility where I had that group, so it's like so real to me sometimes. So I look forward to seeing those moments, but I remember that one specifically. Um, we wanted to, I think we kind of like got latched onto the idea of like, this is our community. We can bring something to the community where education is brought to how to understand us. Um, and try to help with like some of the we kind of broke down like the challenges of like building a community outreach program that wasn't specifically driven for addicts, but provided to people of education about addicts and
Mhm.
about recovery and what that looks like. Specifically, I think it was like it was just like a pro, and this is before a lot of these treatment centers are around here in this area. So this is kind of like seeing community outreach that provides like Al-Anon families counseling session for those that are struggling for their family and friends that are in addiction or suffering from addiction and how to love them through that
Mhm.
and things like that. And that was kind of like we just latched on to it and we're like, now we could take this. Like this is our skill set. Who better to help someone love an addict than us? And that was kind of a that was definitely whenever we took a turn and I got my light bulb of realization had hit before that. But I think that's whenever I actually considered, like, the actual considered a fact of like pursuing it,
Mhm.
pursuing like a job in the field of helping addicts, helping family members, things like that.
Yeah. And so you haven't started a business, right? But you entered into employment. If I remember the first time that you and I talked after that training, maybe a year or so later, you told me about finding a job. I think if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, it was your first actual job after whatever 20 years or so, in active use, and that you were holding it down and feeling that stability and the good from that. So you haven't started a business, but these skills have benefited you on this kind of employment pathway, and now you're also pursuing a degree in the social work field. So talk about how what are the key skills or the key insights that have translated well for you just in regular employment since that time.
So like dealing with like like dealing with like the goal searching of employment would be for me it was on a level of I have to consider the company that I have when I'm in where am I going to be located at? Where am I in Sauter County? What kind of audience am I going to be working with? So that was a barrier in itself. Given that I did have a past, so I was going to come in contact with people that I may have had to learn how to make amends with or may have hurt in my transgressions in the past. So that was a barrier that I had to learn how to overcome and manage and deal with. And it wasn't like a planned experiment, I guess, a planned experiment. It was the mindset that I would use to go into those interactions, to plan for those interactions. I use which I have a whole group of things that I have a sponsor, recovery aspect, I have a sponsor. And one of those steps that we work out is making amends and planning for that amends to be made out. Um, so that basic knowledge and that concept of like this is how this may happen, this might be this, and going into approaching that during a life challenges, man, has been really really mind opening. It's allowed me to explore um, not so much like a career in the field, but more of like I'm always looking to advance in some way, shape, or form. And in my that's one of those mindsets that I had that whenever I was using. I was always looking to get ahead. I was always looking to one up somebody. So that perception of it, they always want to do better. It's kind of that same perception, but it's just used in a more healthy way.
Yeah.
How am I going to move forward in my life?
Yeah. Yeah. How am I going to take the skills that I have now, the resources that I have now, and and invest them rather than just spend them away on something that's here and gone? How can I proactively put them to use in a way that's going to build something for me, right? Or for my family? On the call before we started this webinar, you were telling me a bit about, going to school, and that's going to take some time to complete your degree with the new opportunities that will open for you as a professional in the field. Um, So that's taken some delayed gratification for you. Like you're investing now, you're spending your energy, you're going to class, you're studying, you're doing the things. There's no immediate financial benefit, but you see it coming down the road, and that's like a whole different mindset from what you're describing in the beginning, where you were just hustling, surviving from day to day, right?
Well, big, definitely major shift in like the mindset, living day to day. Throughout that process, though, one of the skills that I had to learn to do was like time management.
Mm.
Um, Being able to really balance the family, work, recovery on top of going to college. You know, time management, um, being able to compartmentalize things and not personalize everything that's going on around me.
Mm.
Um, those have come with their own challenges from times, especially whenever I'm sitting in front of somebody and they're talking about a real life experience, and I just am overwhelmed with like empathy because like I've been there, and learning to take that, push it down, like not push it down to the point where it's unhealthy, but enough to where I can put that person in front of me before myself, which is something I've never possessed before.
Yeah, to be able to manage the stresses, right?
Yeah,
More successfully without allowing them to just totally blow up your progress. And not even then that you'll be successful all the time. We'll make mistakes, we'll fall down, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to become the complete catastrophe that it might have in the past, right?
100%. I've
Yeah.
had I've had a couple of things that's happened, like build my credit after destroying it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Working on like the 3 to 5 year plan of mortgaging a home.
Mm-hmm.
Building my credit back up was a big one. So like maintaining like bills, um, loans, and how this loan is going to work for me in here, while being married with a family, on top of it, and their sanctity and the safety of my home being secured, and also it's definitely been a thing, where like planning for the future was never really a plan. I'm not real spontaneous anymore. I'm real hesitant whenever I make life changing decisions, even if it's as simple as do I do I pay this bill versus this bill? Do I put gas in my car, this amount of gas in my car, go buy this amount of groceries? I'm very hesitant with those decisions because they can have really
Mm-hmm.
big changes for me, make very big problems. So I'm very hesitant on my decision making skills. I plan things out. I try to be not too methodical with it. I prepare for things if they do go wrong, but I don't put expectations on them anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know? And I
So
feel like they're under control.
yeah, yeah. So thinking about, the person you were then, the person you are now, the growth you've experienced, you're a professional now in the space, you're improving yourself, you're being proactive. If you had an audience of other treatment providers or reentry specialists, people who work in this space trying to help people at the point you were then, what's one thing that you think is really key for providers to understand about the needs of guys like yourself who are fresh into recovery? They're approaching reentry and they're not where you are now, they're where you were then, but you want to get them to where you are now on that path. What's the key thing that providers need to understand about how they can help a person make that type of progress?
Definitely getting down,
You muffled out there for just a minute. Say that piece again.
meeting them where they're at,
Okay.
and meeting them where they're at, um, was a big one. That's something that I still do today, and allowing them to empower themselves, giving them opportunities to empower themselves, um, and kind of making it self-driven. I know that a lot of people in the process that I was going through wanted to push the goals and have us chasing goals and stuff like that, but it wasn't really what we wanted to do, you know. Um, Getting a business, having a family, responsibilities, that don't sound appeasing to someone that was in my shoes back then. But giving me something to empower me was so so beneficial to me, and which was like giving me control back over my life.
Yeah, I love that you say that. That's so key, right? Because self-directed learning is highly motivating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe we used this analogy back in your all's training. I use it a lot now, but we talk about that overlap. If you picture the three circles, the Venn diagram, the overlap between a person's personal interests, their personal skills, what they're good at, and then what other people need. And if you can
Yeah.
help a person find that space, right, where their interests and abilities, the things they're already motivated to pursue, and that they already care about, you don't have to convince them. I don't have to convince you to care about these things, right? You're already good at it. You already have a capacity for it. You're already interested in it. And then if you can see how this could help other people, that you could turn this into something that is good for other people and that's valuable to them, and they might even pay money for, or it might provide opportunities for you to advance. That's what it's all about. That's the heart of the entrepreneurial mindset. And like you said, that is very empowering for an
Yeah.
individual, not being told what they should do, but maybe having people to work with them and say, okay, here, where are you at right now? Like you said, we meet you where you are. And what are the goals that you see in your life that we can work on?
Yeah, that was a big one for me because I didn't, like I said, I didn't have no goals. The
Mm-hmm.
goal was just not to pick up one
Mm-hmm.
day at a time, and slowly over a period of time, like getting like having a family, having my own home. Those wasn't planned goals. Those are just stuff that came from me having interest in like just growing internally. Just being a better person. And that started with that empowerment. Having someone believe in me when I didn't believe in myself. Having someone see me for who I was and not what everybody else suspected me to be.
Yeah.
How like the stigmas that I've carried for so long of being a convict, being an addict, you know, um, being biracial, all those different stigmas that come with like society. I learned not to condemn society for having them because I was taught that I'm in control of my life, and if I allow myself to answer to those things or become those things, it's something that I've done that's put me in a situation to do that. And people just see me for who I was and what I wasn't, which is a skill set that I've learned from that is humility. I don't think too much of myself. I don't think too little of myself. I see myself for who I am today. Not what everybody else painted a picture of it, expecting me to be. No one expected me to be where I'm at today. I did, So the fact that I'm here, gratitude is definitely always a key factor in holding on to that. And if you can help a person in this seat that I was sitting in when I first came into this program, see that they are like they're beautiful. It's something as simple as a smile and an engagement and encouragement that they're a beautiful person, despite what picture's been painted. They have the opportunity to have power of choice to paint the picture for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a powerful starting point. And you keep answering all my questions before I ask them. That's
Um,
great. But what you're saying there about humility, I remember a quote that I read that I really like. And this guy said that humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. Right. So, like you said, a real well balanced perspective of myself in relation to everybody else. And when you get cut down to the heart of entrepreneurship and the mindset that we're talking about here, that's a lot of what it is. It's a very others centered approach to life. How can I take what I have and make it useful for other people to serve, to benefit, to improve, to provide, create value? And then in the process, I benefit too. It's a mutual thing. It helps me advance, it helps me grow, it helps me improve. So to instill that mindset, to cultivate that mindset in someone else, I think does have that kind of product too of like a genuine humility. And I see myself just as I am in relation to other people, no more, no less. So I'm going to give you one more question, Jimmy. And this is one that I usually throw out at the end of our podcast, but I think it's appropriate for here today. Let's say somebody's listening to this conversation either today or we're going to record it and they listen to it later on our YouTube. This person is in recovery or they're approaching reentry, right? And they're unsure. They're unsure about themselves. They're unsure about their future. What do you say to that person at that point in time who's looking for a little bit of that hope that you talked about is so important?
I would tell them not to give up on themselves, no matter what. There's a specific set of people out there, and they're in something very similar to them, that they are meant, that they have a purpose to drive them to reach those people. Um, Hope is instilled many different ways. Um, One thing is, don't give up on yourself. Failure only happens whenever you quit trying.
Love it. Perfect, man. All right, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time today, for joining us. Anything else you want to say or throw out there?
It's a blessing for you having me, man. It's
Yeah.
my first time doing this, so
Yeah,
it's really,
yeah. We've leveled up today. Experience
yeah.
points. Hopefully, we'll see you again out moving forward sometime soon. Maybe we can connect on that basis. But
Cool.
okay, thank you. Tell you what, for the rest of our audience here today, we're going to wrap it up. Let me check the chat real quick, see if we have any questions, if we have any little final questions or comments from anybody in attendance. Doesn't look like it. Okay, great. We were clear. We said everything we needed to say. I want to thank you all for your time today. You're going to receive follow-up email from us just with resources that were referenced in this conversation and presentation today. I invite you to put it on your calendar when it's up to join us again next month for the ongoing series here. Check out other resources that we have. If you were interested, if you resonated with what Jimmy had to say, reach out to him, to moving forward, to us, and we want to carry this conversation forward. So, and be a benefit however we can. So thank you all so much, Jimmy. Thanks to you again. And you guys all
Thank you,
enjoy your
guys.
day. All right.
No problem.